The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
Welcome back to another rousing rendition of the UAB Director's Chair. He is the athletic director for the UAB Blazers. Go Blazers. Mark Ingram on the left-hand side of the screen. Tony Kurre, your host. And, of course, huge UAB Blazer fan for years and years and years. We do the show every single week right here on the TKR platform of radio stations and podcast. You can find us on any podcast network you go to, Audio Boom, iTunes, whatever, and certainly find it on TKR. You can listen to it at least 5 days a week. We also talk some music. Before I get into college sports today, though, and we did not talk about this before the show, but I think it's okay to announce it now. We have a brand new show that's starting in August.
Yep.
That is going to include you and I. Not sure if it's going to be, this is going to morph into that or not, but we're super excited because we have two other individuals who are going to be joining us on that show. Do tell our listening audience and our viewing audience what we've got brewing for August.
Yeah, we've got a new show. We got this fancy studio that Tony found, and it's going to be we're going really uptown with this thing, and we're going to be over in a real legit podcast studio with cameras, hair and makeup, and all this fancy stuff. And
not to say that this is not legit. I mean, I am in my master bedroom. I do all my podcasts. I mean, this is real legit. But for sake of I don't take a nap in this other studio we're doing.
Yeah, look out, Joe Rogan. Here we come.
Hey, really? It's a dark room with a table. What you need?
That's right. That's right. But our coaches are going to join us more frequently, and you'll hear from our football and basketball coaches, but all of our coaches are going to participate, which I think will be fun to bring them in and out as guests and things on the show. So really going to turn this thing into what started out as a lot of fun and a great way to talk about the Blazers is still going to be that, but much, much more. We've
had Andy on this podcast once or twice. He stuck his head in your office a couple of weeks ago. We've had Trent Dilfer on a couple times as well. And you certainly have two of the most well-known, well-branded coaches in all of sports. I mean, and that's not something you can put a value on, a price on. Trent Dilfer, obviously on ESPN forever. Andy Kennedy obviously went to UAB, was at Cincinnati Ole Miss, and he certainly is blazing a trail of his own the last 4 years, the most games ever won at UAB, which says a lot when you're talking about the Gene Bartow years. And I want people to understand that we have fun on the show. And like I got an email about TV theme songs today we'll get into in a little bit. We like to have fun. We talk about our families on the show. We talk about rock and roll. And we certainly talk about college sports. We do talk about UAB, but we do the landscape of this. I always talk about pulling back the curtain on college sports. I've got one of the top premier athletic directors in the country every single week. So I'm not going to ask you about X's and O's. You're not a coach. I can ask you about your team and how you feel about your team. And I know you're a passionate individual and you see everything.
Yeah.
But I really like to know more about college sports. So we're going to jump into that right away. It seems like every single week we're talking about the landscape with NIL, transfer portals, certainly the landscape changing with conference affiliation. And if you just pull up college sports and go to news, it just scrolls hundreds of articles from coaches, from ADs, just about where we're headed and why we're heading that way and why we're heading that way. And I saw a headline this morning here, the NASCARification of college football is on the way. And that is to say that it appears at this point, everything not only is for sale, but needs to be for sale. Now, I know growing up, I'm a Cincinnati Bengals fan. It was Paul Brown Stadium forever. As a matter of fact, they were the last NFL team to finally sell out in 2022 to Paycor. I don't know what they paid. It was like $150 million or something at the brand new stadium, and they were going to put a price tag on it. But people don't realize that it was Three River Stadium forever, and still till Hines took it. So I mean, everything is for sale. We see you play a protective, and it's been going on for years. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. But are there some things that aren't for sale? If someone's got the right money, what can they buy if you're talking about putting something on a UAB Blazer uniform or on a field or have an announcer make an announcement? Or have you discussed that?
So there are NCAA rules around where you can have signs on the field, on the court, how many.
Okay.
And then, of course, on the players themselves. Right now, the only sign, if you will, that we can have on the players is you have a conference logo somewhere on their shirt, and you have an Under Armour. We're an Under Armour school. You have an Under Armour logo, but the size of those is based on a rule from the NCAA. It can only be, so big. The size of those patches, Under Armour would make it this big if they could, make it that big. But there's a rule around that, what it can and cannot be.
Well, now is that a rule that's a rule that's certainly going to have to be relooked at, right? I mean,
and I don't know about this. Maybe. I mean, the size is one thing. Remember, in some cases, think about like a basketball uniform different than football or baseball, where there's just less material, right? Because it's a tank top. So, the little strap, if you will, of the tank top over the shoulder is not that big. And you're trying to put it in a place that's prominent, right? If you move it too far down the shirt, it could be tucked into the shorts or whatever, bunched up and you not see it. And like when players are shooting free throws, it's kind of like the angle that the fans can see out of you and me right now, right? It's just sort of like a chest up type, image. So you're trying to get it near that player's face if that's what your desire is. So I think the rule that's being discussed is adding a corporate logo, a bank logo, and it could be one thing this year and something different the next, which you see has started in the NBA. And certainly you mentioned NASCAR, but that has started in pro sports. And then the field logo, which was recently approved, that we could add. We've always been able to have one corporate logo on the 25-yard line. It's got to be the same company, and it's on this 25 and that 25. Now you can have one added to one at the 50-yard line underneath your team logo. So that's new.
Now, how does that
only of a certain size?
Yeah. How does that play? Yeah, it's got to be a certain size. How does that play into television rights then? That's the NCAA rule for your school. Can television and Fox or NBC or CBS or ABC, can they superimpose what they want on a field? And does that have to be approved by you and the NCAA, or
that
it's got to be approved by them too as well? Because you see stuff up there all the time. In Major League Baseball, who has been known to sell everything.
Yeah.
I mean, there's stuff on the mound now. There's certainly stuff behind, and certainly with computer animatrix, it's given them an opportunity to basically promote whatever they want, wherever they want, however they want. And listen, I know people. NASCARification is a great way to put it, because NASCAR has just, pardon me, they just hoard themselves out. I mean, every square inch of that car.
Yeah, and I don't think we're headed there yet. Now, I mean, we might not someday, but we're not there. We're just adding some categories, a few categories, to try to help with this house settlement, some of these other payments that we have.
So I want to ask you a question here as an athletic director. Let's raise some money here for the UAB Blazers. So give me something that would be worth top dollar to you as an athletic director. If you were going to sell something, and you said, listen, this deserves the best dollar. I mean, outside the stadium, obviously, which is already called protective, which I think is huge because it's called protective by everybody. But would it be something on the helmet? Would it be something on the field? Would it be something in a song? What would be the high dollar product that UAB could offer?
Yeah, well, I mean, all of our stadiums that don't have a corporate name already, you could consider even, and this would be ultra sensitive, but think about Bartow Arena if it was, such and such bank place at Bartow Arena. I would never, Mary Bowers Field, which is softball, Young Memorial, which is baseball. I would never want to go away from any of those things. But if you could do a partnership where it's whatever place at this stadium or the bank center at Bartow Arena.
Has that been something that's been offered before?
No. I'm just, you're asking
yeah.
That's the kind of thing.
No, but has anyone ever come up to you and say, listen, I want to own Bartow Arena?
No, they haven't. No. And so for anybody listening, I'm just answering a question of our host here. But things that would be available in a legitimate way that I would say are really valuable is, yes, the football field and the basketball court. The basketball court, the number of views that it gets because of television now, and our partnership in the American, same thing in football. I mean, it's more than the and quite frankly, it's a lot more than just what's at the building. It's not just who's in the arena at the game. It's really where the value is to the corporate sponsor is the television that they're getting from the ESPN broadcast, which is significant. I mean, it's, hundreds of thousands and into the millions, depending on who we're playing. So that's where the real value is on that court or the field, because the camera is always picking it up.
Do you know what Protected Play paid and how long that contract is?
I know what they paid and how long it is. Yes.
Well, I mean, I can go find it if you don't want to tell me. Was it?
Yeah, I'm not telling you, but that deal is with Protective and the BJCC.
Is that a 10-year deal?
Protective and UAB.
10-year deal? 5-year deal?
Yes, I think it's a 10-year deal.
10-year deal, yeah. Yeah, and it's obviously in the millions. Just want to say, I could find out. Could find out what you make.
We are very thankful for their support and get that stadium built.
And I mean, you had what was the name of the business that used to have their name Enron? Was it? Didn't they have their name Enron Stadium? Wasn't there an Enron Stadium? I think
not here.
Yeah, not here, but I mean, and we certainly saw that with Health South had their name on a few things around here for a little while until they bucked back up. So interesting stuff. UAB Athletic Director Mark Ingram joins us right here, and we do this every single week right here. It's called the UAB Director's Chair. We talk about college sports and everything else. So, what is it with everything going on right now? And I just feel like we're just kind of like. I kind of feel like we're waiting for this other shoe to drop, but I don't think there's a shoe. I think there's multiple shoes. I think it's going to be like I think it's going to be like Paris Hilton's shoe closet. That's going to drop a shoe at a time. What in particular, as an athletic director, are you most concerned about right now? 9 weeks out from college football, going into this season. I mean, with everything on the table and everything, because we know this thing has been settled. We don't really know what that means.
The settlement, here's what's hard about that, is we've been told some preliminary stuff that I would just say is mostly in draft form. The detail in all of it won't be made aware to us until like February or March. So our fiscal year, which ends in 10 days, the next fiscal year that starts in 11 days, we won't know until the third quarter of that fiscal year what that number is and how we will pay that in terms of. I mean, it's going to be a withholding from the NCAA. We're not actually going to write a check, right? They're just going to withhold a distribution that they would otherwise pay. So it'll be like a loss in revenue for all the business folks out there and accountants. It's a loss in revenue. So it's not a matter of us we're going to file a lawsuit. By gosh, we're not going to pay this. No, they're just going to withhold it. But we won't know. What a lot of us have asked is, no matter when it is determined and decided, could we wait a year so we have enough time to plan for it? Yeah. We found out about this thing. All of our budgets were set for what's about to be our upcoming fiscal year. And we found out like 3 weeks ago that we even have to participate. We didn't even think we were going to have to participate. Mm-hmm. Now we have to not only participate, but participate at what is for us a high level. And so pulling back on things we were going to invest in our program in order to accommodate this is not an easy thing to do.
Were there any other powerful platforms or positions that the NCAA owned that they lost through this antitrust settlement? I mean, they used to say, the worst three people you could see at your front door is 60 Minutes, the IRS, and of course the NCAA. You're going to be looked at whenever the NCAA was snooping around your facilities. You were in major trouble. I mean, I remember doing radio, and we're like, look out! You knew you were going on probation for 4 or 5 years. I don't even know if that exists anymore. I rarely hear anyone ever being put on probation. But is there anything else? Have they lost power in anything else they're doing as of right now that they have power over? Because it seems like they're incrementally losing something almost every month.
The NCAA is a national office that was put in place by the members.
Yeah.
We are a member. So
you are the NCAA.
Elect sort of officials within our structure who hired the folks who work at the NCAA just to administer what we've asked them to administer. We constantly beat up that office like they're this group of people that aren't doing what we asked them to do. They're doing what we asked them to do. Yeah. We are the members. we choose to be a member. We've put them in place to assist us with the administration of, and their job mainly, though it doesn't get talked about, their job is championships. They host a championship for every single sport. They host the fencing national championship. Where do you think the money comes from?
Mm-hmm.
Because it mainly comes from the basketball tournament.
Yeah.
UAB helps run the NCAA beach volleyball championship down in Gulf Shores. The NCAA funds that. They're funding that. So all these other championships that you may not care about, but the student athletes do, and the coaches do, and their families, et cetera, do, that's all funded by the NCAA, coming out of, the revenues that they make from whatever championships, College World Series, the Softball World Series, even if it's not a lot of money, if they may not make a profit, but if they can generate revenue to help offset the cost of those things, that's what they're doing. And they manage all that. I think, but the answer to your question is yes. Unfortunately, the NCAA has just lost a lot of trust. They've moved too slowly in investigating things, which has, prevented people from trusting them. It's made people dislike them. By the time they get to through an investigation, a lot of times the coaches or the people involved with whatever went down, they've moved on. So then the school or the student athlete that did a wrong thing, they punished the team. That student athlete or coach are gone. They've graduated or taken another job, and so now you're penalizing the school and the student athletes who had nothing to do with it. Yeah, and that's a problem. The NFL. You don't hear much about broken rules like Deflategate. When I say Deflategate, you know exactly what I'm talking about because it doesn't happen very often. Why doesn't it happen very often? Well, because the NFL, they would come in and they would have a team swarming around your school for 3 or 4 weeks. They'd ask all the questions they need to ask, knock it out. And then within, a month, they're coming back and saying, hey, look, here's what we found, and you're suspended, and you're fined, and you're whatever. And they act swiftly and accordingly. And the team, can not like it, but they handle it. And it makes everybody else go, better not mess up. Yep. They're going to come in here, and I don't want to deal with that. But right now, somebody breaks a rule, and the NCAA can't even get to it because they're dealing with all these lawsuits. They're focused on something else. They'll get to it when they get to it. Couple years down the road, and it makes the other institutions resent them because of it. So it's a tough spot that they're in, but there's no doubt that people have lost faith in that organization.
My favorite is secondary violations. I always thought that was hilarious. The people, you screw up on purpose. You're self-reporting 27 secondary violations, not UAB, but a lot of schools. Yeah. They throw it out there because, listen, we know we screwed up, so here you go. And if it's a secondary violation, you get a tap on the wrist and you're pretty
much. This isn't written like in their, core values or anything, but essentially, the NCAA would tell you that they want you to report. If you're reporting violations, secondary violations, if you're reporting those violations, they know you're paying attention and that you're monitoring your rules. You're monitoring your coaches and student athletes and your programs. I've got some friends that are still in the industry. Most of these that would say this have retired, but they would say, we went last year, the whole year didn't have one violation.
Okay.
That's impossible. that just means you're not watching. If I just cover my eyes up and cover my ears up and I don't see it or hear it, does that mean it didn't happen? Well, of course it happened.
Yeah.
And so I always thought that was funny. I remember an AD saying that once. We didn't have one single violation last year.
Yeah, you don't want to say that. You don't want to say that. No, don't do that. Mark Ingram, the UAB Athletic Director, is called the UAB Director's Chair. We do it every single week. You can hear it at least 5 days a week right here on the TKR app and wherever you get your favorite podcast. And, of course, right here on our YouTube channel, we have a brand new show kicking off here in August that's going to include Trent Dilfer and Andy Kennedy. Can't wait to do that show. It's going to be huge, and it's going to be a lot like what we're doing now, but we're going to expand it out a little bit. So make sure you listen up, and wherever you get your favorite podcast, you'll find us. It's going to be easy to find. Emails, info@TonyCurryRadio.net, info@TonyCurryRadio.net. Got one here from Jackson, Mississippi. This comes from Chad. Chad wants to know, and by the way, I did not clear this before you, so I apologize, but I just found it's a great question. Please ask Mark Ingram if we have oversaturated the television of sports. This based on the Bally situation. I don't know if you know what's going on with Bally. Evidently, Bally came in, well-known casino property owned, and basically bought out a lot of these, I guess, lower tiered. I don't know, like the Jefferson Pilots, those kind of things, and bought a stadium. I think there's a stadium app thing. So this is called Stadium View now. I think sometimes you can see some games on. We used to call them the Jefferson Pilot, the JP games, or the PPVs, which you really don't have anymore. Mm-hmm. But and then Bally's bought up all these different. They bought the Atlanta Braves. The Atlanta Braves is owned by Bally's. Wow. Cincinnati Reds owned by Bally's. They bought a ton of properties, and they're losing their behinds right now. And so now they're starting to sell things off and scour things because they just paid too much to have the rights to these things. Is there an oversaturation? It's hard to believe that I remember I was sitting there, down at Legion Field the other night, taking the tram to Rickwood. And I looked at my son. I said, man, it's hard to believe that Alabama used to play 3 games here. And he said, really? And I said, yeah, they used to play 3 home games here. I said, when I moved here, they were playing 3 home games. And I said, that was it. You either went to a home game or you watched 1 or 2 games on television, and then there was a pay-per-view game, and nothing else was on TV. You couldn't watch half the schedule. You couldn't watch half the games. Now everything is available. And I think as a sports fan, we're better off for that. But from a business standpoint, is it oversaturated? Is there too much sports on television?
Well, I'll say this, it hurts your in-stadium experience, right? If you don't have to go to the game and you can stay at home, then that means it's harder to get people to go to the games. If you're super dominant, you can fill up your stadium. But if you're not super dominant, filling up your stadium is hard, especially if every game is televised. So that's where I'd see the conflict is in maintaining a sold-out crowd, which looks good on TV. That's also part of the appeal. Maintaining a full stadium or arena while also broadcasting, those 2 things are tough.
You remember blackouts?
Yeah, I did.
Those are fun.
The NFL used to do them all the time. I don't know if they still do or not.
Yeah, for people that don't remember, I don't know if they do or not either.
Not that long ago, listen, my in-laws, the Bengals fans, all the time. If their stadium wasn't sold out, the NFL did a blackout in the Cincinnati area. You couldn't watch it on TV.
And
you can't watch this because you should have gone.
They were never sold out either. They were never sold out ever.
No.
So you couldn't watch
the game. Times where I remember some of their players would buy the tickets. Mm-hmm. Their players would step up and say, "Hey, we're going to buy 10,000 tickets to this game." So that it won't be blacked out in the greater Cincinnati area, and you guys, all the fans, can watch, and which is a wonderful gesture by them. But I remember blackout.
Speaking of TV in Cincinnati, Billy in the Queen City says he loves the show. He loves the fact that we talk about rock and roll and music. Please ask Mark Ingram what his top 5, or he says top 10, but we'll go top 5 TV theme songs are. Before we get started, and I've been looking down a couple times and I'm paying attention, but I wanted to pull up the top 10 Billboard ranked TV theme songs.
Okay.
And this is from 1979 to 2014. So any TV show outside that. How Do You Talk to an Angel peaked at number 1. I guess that's American Idol and the Glee thing, aired the Heights, I guess. I don't know. The Miami Vice theme song, remember that? That was number 1 back in 1985. Theme from The Greatest American Hero, Believe It or Not.
That's on mine. Believe it or not, I'm walking on air.
There you go. That was the number 2 in 1981. Theme from Hill Street Blues. Made it to number 10 back in 1981. I'll Be There for You from the Rembrandts, which is a little surprising. It hit number 17. I thought it would have been up there a little higher.
What about Cheers?
I'm getting there. You'll be surprised. Theme from the Dukes of Hazzard. Waylon Jennings made it to number 21. Moonlighting.
Taking away the only way they know how.
Yes. Moonlighting, great song from Al Jarreau. Got a chance to hear him actually sing that song live in concert. Peaked at number 23. Theme from Magnum P.I., number 25 in 1982. Theme from Dynasty, number 52. And WKRP in Cincinnati was the next song. It peaked at number 65. By the way, the Cheer song was never a top 40 hit, which is really
top 40 hits. Yeah, no, I get that.
It never got released as a single. So it has to be released as a single in order to, and is based off sales only. And so what it did was, it was like the song Thriller from Michael Jackson was never number one because so many people were playing it before it was released as a single that it only got up to number 3. And by the time they released it, people were burned out on it and it couldn't go up any higher, which is crazy. So, you don't have to give me your best one. Just give me some theme songs. It was funny. I was down at this, mentioned I was down there at Rickwood. And it was fantastic, by the way. I love that. And the fact that Willie Mays passed away during the baseball game was like a mind-blowing experience, surreal.
Yeah.
But I heard this band playing, they had a band outside. They were playing Good Times.
I love that's how be on my list.
And I'm like, Good Times, dude. I hadn't heard that song in so long. It sounded so good. So what are some of your favorites?
Well, Good Times for sure. And you can kind of tell my age by my list. The Jeffersons, Moving On.
Oh, the Jeffersons. I was in Atlanta. There was a band playing the Jeffersons theme song when that bomb went off in 1996. I was in the parking lot. The bomb went off, Centennial Park, right across the street. I remember hearing that song. I remember I had a drink in my hand. It was a Jack and Coke. It was half filled. And I remember that bomb. I remember that song. But that's one of the all-time great. That's one of the songs where I wish there was like a 6-minute version of that song. I love that song. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great one.
Yeah.
So I love Good Times. I love the Jeffersons. I always like the theme song from Sanford and Son, which doesn't have any vocals.
Yep.
But I don't know what makes that sound. That's kind of like old pickup truck. This is what that truck should sound like.
That was done by a guy. His last name is James. He was also the same individual that did the theme song to Taxi. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I want to say his name's not Rick James. I don't remember his first name, but the last name was James. But a great blues artist that did that song.
What about Welcome Back, Kotter?
You know what? I absolutely love that song. The reason that was not on this list is because Welcome Back, Kotter came out before 1980. That was a number one song. The gentleman who wrote that song, and forgive me for not remembering his name, was in the band called the Raspberries back in the 60s and 70s. And they went to him and said, "We got this new TV show. It's about this teacher and a bunch of kids, and we need to do a song that's going to have Welcome Back in it or something. Could you write us something?" And I want to say it was Bill Medley, but it wasn't. And he went into a hotel room one night, had never written a hit in his life, and wrote that song and came out and played it for him. They're like, "Let's go with it." And that was a number one hit. That was one of the biggest TV theme songs of all time. Great song. When I hear that now, I love hearing that song.
Well, and then, there's other songs that are not really, I don't even know if I'd call them songs. They're almost like old commercial jingles. But when you hear them, like, the theme song to The Office, when you hear it,
Yep.
Seinfeld, when you hear it, there's no words. It's not really even that long. But when you hear it, you're like, oh, yeah, I know exactly what that is.
Do you remember the Rockford Files?
Yeah.
That was actually a song that was released as a single. If you want to go right after the show, go listen to the original Rockford Files song. It's about 5.5 minutes long. It's fantastic. The guitar in it is outrageous. Great. Rockford Files was one of those great PI shows before the Magnum PIs and before all that garbage came out. That was a wonderful show. What was his name? Joe Mannix was his name? Was it? No, Mannix was the name of the show. There was Hook on Mannix, right? No, that was, that was Joe. I'm trying to think who's the guy that played Jim Rockford. I can't remember.
Here's a great one. You remember the show The Fall Guy?
Yes.
Teenagers.
Yeah.
And that had a great theme song, and that was by was that Waylon Jennings or somebody that who did you say sang the Dukes of Hazzard?
Waylon Jennings.
Yeah, I think he may have done The Fall Guy as well.
I think you may be right. BJ and the Bear.
Yeah. Right turn, Clyde.
Too Close for Comfort. For some reason, I don't know why, it was a show with Ted Knight. I don't know if you remember the show. It was not a great show, but it was really funny. I love Ted Knight, everything he's in. But if you ever go listen to the theme song to Too Close for Comfort from Ted Knight. It was fantastic. I put the Rockford Files. I did have Magnum PI just because it was just a super cool song. The guitar at the beginning of it was fantastic.
Here's a great song by Billy Joel from Bosom Buddies.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. True.
It's a fantastic song.
Three's Company.
Great one.
Yeah. I don't know. Keep them coming. Info@TonyCurryRadio.net. Info@TonyCurryRadio.net. Great question there. And keep them coming. We'll always do some music type of element. It's going to be really interesting when we get into music with Trent and Andy.
Yeah. We'll see who they really are. Their true colors are coming in.
Well, and Andy did pretty well the last time he stuck his head in your office.
He loves reggae music. Listen, he's going to go straight to Bob Marley. But what we're going to have to pin Andy on is, does he know any reggae music other than Bob Marley?
Okay.
Or does he just know the Bob Marley Greatest Hits, the Legend album, and nothing else?
All right. This a website called Flask and Barrel. .com. It's pretty well known in the liquor world. Just came out with their top drinking genres. They found out that they went to Spotify and they picked out, if you put drinking songs in, they wanted to see where you went if you put drinking songs in. And the majority of people, like 55%, went to hip hop music. The second was classic rock, and then indie pop was the third.
Country music.
And country was fourth. Believe it or not, country was fourth on this list, and that was out of 24,000 searches on Spotify. But I will tell you this one classic rock band had 3 of the top 5 songs. I will tell you who that band is on our next podcast right here at the UAB Director's Chair. And next week on this show, we could talk about some of our favorite poppin' songs. I don't drink anymore, but I certainly have my days. I remember the songs that used to get me off on it, and so we'll talk about that next week. How's that?
I got a good friend that says, he goes, I don't drink anymore. He goes, I used to drink, because he goes, okay. And I said, he says, I had to stop. I was too good at it.
I was the same way. I used to say I was really good at it until I wasn't, and then it was time to quit. Yeah. All right, my man. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. We'll catch you next week.
All right, brother.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.